It's Pyram King, and I'm super excited to bring you this special edition guide to Curse of Strahd, the Atlas of Barovia. And this is not any ordinary atlas. This atlas includes roll tables, random encounters, environmental conditions, fortunes of Ravenloft, quest guides, and so much more. This is such an essential piece of kit for the Dungeon Master that I am making this available for free to everyone, both in PDF guide format and Foundry Adventure modules. Even if you're running Curse of Strahd, just rules as written, this has all the D&D Beyond links in it back to specific locations in Curse of Strahd on D&D Beyond, so you don't have to search for anything, making your life so much easier. It also provides context and locations and meaning to everything to help navigate, as well as doing session prep. So if you're running Curse of Strahd rules as written, I think you're going to really appreciate this guide. Now, if you're running my additional content for Legends of Barovia, all those additional locations, NPCs, reference to the guides and to the videos, they're all in here as well. I was really inspired by the first edition I6 Ravenloft module by Tracy and Laura Hickman, second and third edition Ravenloft lore, even pulling from some historical classical literature and history, including Keats, Sir Edmund Spenser, Shakespeare and Stoker, including historical references to Vlad the Impaler, the Ottoman and Habsburg dynasty and empires, and of course, inspired by a lot of great fan-based content out there as well, all woven together in here. Now, you can ignore that if you're not interested in that stuff, but that is also included in here. We'll be talking a little bit about that. Now, a couple of important notes before we jump into this. The first thing is this is a living and open guide. What does that mean? Well, if you've been following my Curse of Strahd series over the last year in guides, I haven't finished yet. There's still a couple big locations. The big elephant in the room, obviously, Ravenloft. And I'm working with DM Andy, the cartographer. He's working on that map, and we'll have that launched soon. So I imagine this is constantly going to be updated every time we roll out new content, which is monthly. So the PDF guide will be updated. If you have the Foundry Adventure module, you'll get a push notification that there's going to be an update. Just run the update, and all those new features will be in here. So just please bear in mind, if you see something that's not in there, it's probably coming. And it'll be rolled out in future editions. Now, before we jump into this, special, huge thank you to the Patreon community that is making this epic journey for me in Curse of Strahd a reality. All the PDF guides, the token packs, my voice acting, of course, these Foundry Adventure modules, all would not happen if it wasn't, well, for this amazing Patreon community. Now, if you're interested in supporting me in this epic journey as a Patreon supporter, you can. There's a link in the description below, patreon.com/PyramKing. And if you support me at the Foundry Adventurer level, well, your names are credits right here. We're in the module right now. Look at this. This is a credits page in the module, and these are all the amazing Patreon supporters that have been supporting me in this epic journey. So huge thank you and shout out to them. They're on our Discord channel, sharing ideas and story. I love reading their campaign stories. If you support me at the PDF level, your names are in the PDF guide as well. And now the whole community, because this is going to be available to the higher community, the entire community, everybody's going to see your names in here that have supported and made this a reality. So huge shout out and thank you to all of you. A couple of special acknowledgments. First of all, of course, my partner in this epic journey, the cartographer and map maker, DM Andy. We're going to be looking at a gorgeous map of Barovia in here that he's created. Now, this is a hex-based version WebP. It also doesn't include any named locations in there. However, if you're looking for a different variety of this particular map, gridless, with grids, name locations, special indicators. I think he has 6 different varieties of this map. You can find those on his Patreon page. There's a link down below. In addition, we've got 3 gorgeous isometric maps of the villages throughout Barovia. This is provided by Langdorsa. He was really nice to allow us to include those in here. You can find those maps both on for free, available on our Discord channel, at my Discord channel, as well as on Reddit. Huge shout out. Thank you for allowing us to include those in there. Also, James RPG Art, his beautiful static images. I love to use them as theater of the mind. We got those in here in WebP format. However, if you're interested in the high resolution or the animated ones, highly recommending those animated versions of James RPG Art. They're amazing. You can use them, by the way, both in Foundry, or if you're playing on the tabletop, you could have those kind of broadcast it onto a big screen TV or onto a screen. I think it'd be really great. Pull those players into the scene. Those animated James RPG art are amazing. There's a link to his Patreon down below. Now, last but not least, these Foundry Adventure modules would not happen without Blair and the Scene Packer module. He's been instrumental helping me put these together as adventure packs available to the entire Foundry community. He's also on our Discord channel providing support to people. I mean, the guy is super, super amazing. Huge shout out to him. If you're interested in creating your own Foundry adventures and looking for Blair to be a support in that, check out his Patreon page. There's a link in the description down below. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump into the Atlas of Barovia. The first thing we're going to see here is this gorgeous map by DM Andy. Now, let's talk a little bit about this map before we get into the details of the Atlas, because this is really important. And I'm going to be focusing mostly on Foundry because we're looking at Foundry in this particular guide here. Now, the first thing I want to talk about this map is used both for the players as well as the DM. And let's talk about how that works. First of all, let me talk about the setup of this particular map in Foundry and how it works from the player perspective. If we look at our map configuration on here, I have set this up so that the token vision fog of exploration is off, so players can see everything on this map. It is important to note that this particular map that I'm using, while Hexbase has no names or references on it other than it says Barovia, and there's some squiggly lines marking roads, and there's some icons for bridges and icons for towns and castles, but the players won't know what that is. In addition to that, what I've done in the configuration file is here I've made it navigated for permissions for all players. That means this will always be on in Foundry, so the players can always jump back to this. Why is that important? Well, as your players are planning their exploration and their adventures through Barovia, they can always jump back to this map and talk among themselves and look at it as they discover and plan to go to different places and discover new locations. Now, how does this work for the player? Well, there's a token here that I have, which is a player token. We're going to zoom in and check it out. I'm going to put it right over here. And the way this player token works is this. It's a single player token. If we look at the token, it is, if we set the permissions, it's set to observer status only for all players. So all players can observe this token, yet they don't control it. It is your job as the dungeon master to move this token as they're traveling across the map. So this shows the players where they are relative to anything else on the map. The second thing that I want to note in Foundry is you're going to see all these map pin and icons. These map pin and icons are invisible to the player, and what you're going to do is they explore the map, you make them observer status only. So on here, for instance, I'm just going to open one to show it to you. The first one here is the Eastern Gates of Barovia. What happens on here, we've got a beautiful picture from James RPG Art of the Gates of Barovia. There's a little brief description in here, and then there's some secret notes that are for you, the DM, that the players would not be able to see. It says recommended levels for this particular area, a little bit of information about this area, NPCs, some time travels, and then down here is the cool part for helping you doing your session prep. If you are using just rules as written, there's a quick link that goes right to D&D Beyond if you own Curse of Strahd to that location. So I click on the link, and boom, we're in D&D Beyond, and there it is, Gates of Barovia. So you can read through the Gates of Barovia. Of course, you got to own this content for that link to work. In addition, I've got links to my video guide in this location, including the PDF guide and Foundry module. So you just click on this, it takes you right into YouTube to this particular section. So if you're going to do a session prep and you want to know something about this location, boom, you can just jump right to that location. In addition, if you're going, hey, I want the PDF guide for this location, I've got my expanded PDF guide here. You can just click on here, takes you right to the page, so you can download the PDF guide and the token pack, everything that I've created for that particular location, as well as the Foundry module. So all the locations I've created are unique Foundry modules. So here's the Foundry module, it talks about all that, and you can just go ahead and install it right there. So all of that stuff is easily available for you in there. The second thing I've done in there is there's NPCs. The NPCs also link back to D&D Beyond. So you want to know who the Vistani are. Well, they're bandits. They're the bandit stat block that goes right to the bandit stat block. If you're using the another system, you can use the D&D Beyond importer, or if you're playing in D&D Beyond, you have access to all that role features and tables in there as well. Now, there's some other features I'm going to show you, but that's how it works. So when the players get here to this location, so you move the player token here at the start of the game, they're at this location, it's a first session, you're going to go into here and you're going to find in locations of Barovia, East Gates of Barovia, and you're going to click player configuration and you're going to set to observer status. So it starts off as none, and then you're going to just move it to observer status. What does that do? Now the icon shows up on the map. They've seen the icon, and they can only see the stuff that's not marked secret. So everything below this line is secret in the gray box. Everything above it, they can see it. So as they explore the map, they're going to have revealing locations, pins on the map, and they'll be able to read the basic description, see a picture. I also have the images set in here so they can see the image. All of that's done for you in here for all of the locations. We'll briefly cover those, and we're going to also talk about the villages as well. So I wanted to talk about how the map is set up, how I would use this in my game for Foundry so the players have access to this. Now, last but not least, how do the players get this particular map? I would recommend 3 different options. Option 1, it's session 0. As you're getting your players together, you're going to say, perhaps maybe all the players were on a previous adventure together, or one of the players, whatever, has this map. Maybe they found it on a previous adventure. Maybe it was left to them by a family or a relative or a friend. This map, they don't know anything about it other than it says Barovia and it's got some stuff on it, but there's no names or nothing on this map. Second option is, as they're initially traveling, maybe in session 1, getting to the gates or something, they find a dead body or a backpack alongside the road that has this map in it. The last option is this map is available for sale in every single village. So in the village of Barovia, which is the first village that the players will get to, it's available from Bildrith's mercantile store in the village of Barovia. It's also available from the bookseller in Vallaki, or available in the general store in Kresk. So players can buy it, the players can find it, but I would give it to them early in the game because it's going to help them plan out their adventure. They're not going to know where anything is, but you're going to get slow reveals and learn about it. And it's a really nice thing for the players to always come back and reference to. Okay, with the map review and setting it up for the players out of the way, let's jump into a couple of things before we talk about locations. The first thing I want to talk about is the Barovia Timeline. Now, this is expanded lore that I have included. Obviously, it draws on a lot of the historical references and previous content that I mentioned. But this Barovia Timeline is important to you as the DM for a couple of reasons. Number one is it provides you some very easy referenceable information for back lore and history that you can call upon to answer questions, to be able to improv, to be able to come up with things on the fly. Remember, your players are going to do the last thing that you expect, and then you're going to have to improv on the fly. The more you know and the more information that you have at hand, the easier it is for you to improv on the fly and come up with new creative answers and things because you know the history and lore. And that's what this timeline is here to provide you. In addition, there's information in this timeline that the players can find in books, information from this timeline that you can share through social interactions of your NPCs. So I'm just going to cover this really briefly. The Barovian timeline is divided into 3 eras. There's the ancient era, that is before the Barovian kings and lords and before the calendar. This is the time of the first settlers, when the Druids built the stone circles, paganism, the time of the Fae, it's when the Amber Temple was built. There's no dates other than approximations. This is like, think about BC. We don't have any exact dates, but it's so far in the past, we just call this the ancient era. The Barovian era is when the first kings and lords came to Barovia. This touches on a lot of rules that are written, a lot of references from the 2nd edition as well. And this is when the Barovian calendar starts. Year 1 is when King Dostron comes and becomes the first king of Barovia. They bring with them the religions of the Morning Lord, and there's a list. A lot of this information is also found in the book Lords of Barovia, which is a player handout they can find. I've highlighted some important events in here when the Great War starts in the year 320. This is when there's invading forces. Strahd shows up with his father in the year 342. And then we get to some very important years here, 346, 347, 48, and through 50. So those 4 years is the end of the war. Strahd wins. Obviously, this is the time when his brother is murdered, Sergei. This is the time when Tatiana commits suicide. This is the time when Castle Ravenloft is finished here in the year 350. Then we get into what's known as the Dark Era, and this marks from Curse of Strahd Rules as written when Strahd makes his pact with the Dark Vestige and finally becomes an immortal vampire, and when the mist settled over over Barovia. This is year 351. So this is the Dark Era through modern times. The current year for players is the year 735. So Strahd has been a vampire for going on over 350 years by the time the players show up. He's been a vampire for a long time. So it's in the Dark Era. So there's the Ancient Era before the time of the kings and lords. There's the beginning of the Barovian Calendar. That's when the first king came. That's for about 350 years. And then Strahd becomes the vampire from 351 to the present 735. So this gives you a lot of stuff that you can reach into, pull in, introduce through NPCs or introduce in lore. But it's meant to be easy reference guides that gives you context to what's going on in the world and why people and places are behaving certain ways. Why is the village of Berez destroyed? Who is St. Markovia? When did Strahd become a vampire? All of that stuff is answered in this really, really simple timeline. This is available as well in PDF form. The second thing here I want to point out in this atlas is our calendar. And this calendar was made by one of our Patreon members, Tisu. Huge shout out to him. He's also translating all of my guides into French. So if you are a French player, they're all available also in French. You have to reach out to him on our Patreon channel and he'll make them available to you. Now, this calendar is important for 3 reasons. Obviously, keeping time in your game. But there's 2 other important reasons that you want to have this calendar. The first one is the calendar has the moon phases. So if you're introducing lycanthropy into the game, you're going to know when it's a full moon in the game, in which that's going to be affecting those players under that full moon with lycanthropy. So that's in here for all of the calendars every single month. This is the year 735, by the way. The other thing in there, if you're running the Epic Fae quest, which I highly recommend you do because it really ties all the lore and the locations together. It's a really cool quest, finding the gems and restoring the Fane circles and going all over Barovia. Well, you're going to know from reading that book at the beginning of the campaign and the lore at the beginning of the campaign is in order to consecrate and restore those Fane circles, you need to bring a tribute as part of the ritual. And the tribute depends on the time of year. So there's 4 different tributes. There's winter, which begins at winter solstice. There's the spring that begins at spring equinox. There's the summer tribute that begins at summer solstice, and autumn tribute at autumn equinox. So this tells you what time of year it is. So it'll help you go, oh, we need the apples for the tribute, or we need the bread or the tesser flower, depending on what time of the year is, which ties into a particular season. So this calendar is very helpful for the Fae quest, also helpful if you're running lycanthropy in your game. Next up, I have in here that's pretty important is environmental conditions. And I want to touch on this. Most of these environmental conditions you're going to be familiar with the rules as written. There's a couple of additional ones in there. There's also references to some specific conditions from Barovia. For instance, daylight, glooming daylight. I got a link in here also right back to D&D Beyond that describes it in more detail in here. I just touch on it in here so you have that. Difficult terrain, extreme cold. One thing I made a huge change to that I thought that is better, you don't have to use it, is falling. I really don't like the binary falling feature in D&D. You fall and for every 10 feet you suffer 1d6 worth of damage for every 10 feet. I have a different system in here for falling, which if you're on a cliff or a bridge or on a building, you use this as an optional to falling. So if a character is about to fall, they're going to do a dexterity save, And based on the dexterity save result, depends on what happens. Now, if it's a 1 through 10, they're going to use the traditional rules of falling. That's a 1dx for each 10 feet. However, if they roll an 11 through 18, they slip, but they manage to hang on, and they suffer a particular falling condition. So they're going to need to be rescued, and we've got a really cool fall table in here. And the fall table goes like this. Let me just reset it, and we can just show you. So you just roll on the fall table, and we've got these different outcomes here. So for instance, you slip and you catch yourself, you sprain your wrist, disadvantage on dexterity and saves until the next long rest or healed. We also have suffer 1 level of exhaustion, spraying your ankle, 50% movement until next long rest, lose 1 random item is another one. One of your random items falls to the bottom, so if it's just a building and it's 10 or 20 feet, you could probably get it. But if you're on the edge of a cliff, you're at, and it's 1,000 feet, that item's going to fall all the way down. We do have 1d4 of bludgeoning damage, 1d8 worth of bludgeoning damage, 1d12 as well. Or you roll a 20, you'll suffer 1 level exhaustion. So you're going to be hanging on, you're going to be rolling on the fall conditions table, and can be rescued. So it's just not you fall, you have an opportunity not to fall. I also added in there, if you roll a 19 or higher, it's a close call, and you pull yourself up to safety. So you don't have to run this. I just put this in here as additional feature. I also have high altitude. There's a couple locations in Barovia where at high altitude, and if you've had any experience at high altitude, you know that with the oxygen being thinner up there, strength checks and saves at high altitude are at disadvantage, and every task or traveling is going to take 2 hours instead of 1 hour, just showing you that you're running at thin atmosphere. Things are going to just be more difficult, more challenging. So there's a high altitude condition. I've got slippery ice, strong wind, and also references to the mist. This is a unique thing that happens in Barovia. In here, it also references right back to D&D Beyond. The rules is written on how the mist of Barovia works. So all these environmental conditions are at your fingertips here to reference. The next thing we're going to want to talk about is random encounters in here. Now, I'm going to tell you about my philosophy of random encounters. You can, just my opinion, you can run it how you want to. I have some rules of thumb in here. I'm looking at 2 random encounters per day or 1 per night. If you hit those, you don't want to keep on running random encounters over and over again. There is a rolling determining factor, 18 or higher on the road. You'll roll from a random encounter. You do a random encounter check. And then the wilderness, it's 15 or higher. You can do this every 30 minutes or every hour or every hex per travel. We'll talk about the hex and the hex grid and the traveling here in a second. But here's my philosophy of random encounters. First of all, random encounters do not mean combat encounters all the time. A random encounter could be finding a broken wagon on the side of the road, or a dead body, or finding a trinket. So it doesn't always have to be a combat encounter. My thought on combat encounters with random encounters are this. Number 1, the random combat encounter has to fit within the context and the verisimilitude of where you're at and what are you doing. So if you're up in the snow, traveling the snow, you want a random combat encounter that fits with more of a tundra snow atmosphere. If you're in the woods, you want a random encounter that's going to fit more with that environment. So thinking about environments in your random encounter are one thing. The second thing I like to think about in random encounters is pacing of the game. So in our last session, if we had a lot of combat and it was the majority of the session was just combat heavy and very light on role playing, I might be less interested in rolling a combat random encounter, maybe finding a trinket or something for them to explore on the next session and lighten it up so it's not always combat heavy. Maybe they need to do some more traveling or role playing or exploration. So I use random encounters as a pacing element. If the previous session was just heavy role-playing and maybe no combat encounters, which can occur in Curse of Strahd, maybe this time I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive in getting some combat encounters, maybe on the open road or maybe in the wilderness, to throw some combat in there to create this pacing mechanism. So random encounters are great for pacing. Now, I've got 2 different types of random encounters for you to access. In the actual Foundry module, as well as the PDF guide, I've created some random encounter tables. These are expansions on what's already in the rules as written. You have a daytime random encounter. I've got some things that aren't combat, and I also have nested tables in here with beast and giant beasts and gothic trinkets. I'll show you here. I've got a lot of random encounter tables in here. So we have creatures. I have beasts, giant beasts, monsters, single giant monsters, and swarms of monsters. I also have in here, where is it here? Random encounters. I have a gothic trinket table with over 100 trinkets on here, expanding the existing campaign. So how does this work? Well, if it's in the daytime and you roll an 18 or higher on the rolled or wilderness, you just roll on this. It tells you what random encounter comes up. And it says, something does not seem right. You notice nearby there are 3d6, roll 3d6. There are 8 boar, and you've got the boar creature right here, and there you go. You can just pull the boar in here. So this happens. You can lock the table down so it doesn't re-roll the same thing over and over again. So you can hit draw without replacements. Here we've got weasels. So this is daytime. In the daytime, I kept it to beast. So in the daytime, I'm running beast and giant beast off the random encounter table you can see here. We got another one. There's a gothic trinket, a golden wedding ring with the word always inscribed on the inside. Let me see, we got another one here. A pile of wolf pelts in here. So there's some stuff that are just things that you can find and explore, and then you can go ahead and use it as kind of a plot device or a hook for the players to kind of explore that and expand on it. Maybe you can weave it into your campaign somehow. When I do the nighttime encounters, I have monsters in here. So this is going to be a little bit different than the daytime. So in the nighttime, imagine, there's some monsters. So here we have 1d6 skeletons that attack. Or we have, again, we'll have maybe the monsters, a giant monster here. Well, we got a gothic trinket, 5 crossbow bolts that have religious blessings etched into the shafts. It's pretty weird. Let's see, we got a giant monster. Lone raven. So you can see this, or you can just roll right on the table. If you just want a monster, just roll on the table, and it's going to come up with a monster. And there you go. You got a gargoyle. If you want to roll, so I've got the random tables creatures divided up in here as well. I also have separately the gothic trinket. So if you go, hey, you know what? I just want to have a gothic trinket. You can just roll on the gothic trinket table, and there you got a silver spoon carved with the phrase "I am the land" on it. So if you don't want to have specifically a random combat encounter or don't want to run the risk, you could just roll a gothic trinket on here too. So that is in here for encounters. Now, in addition to the encounter tables in the guide, you also know that I created for the community the PDF guide and Foundry module for random encounters. These are designed with unique battle maps to fit certain locations in Curse of Strahd. So I have winter, ruins, the road, crossroad, and campsite maps with several. Each one has several different types of encounters there. So you can design, using my random encounter module, design specific random encounters based on location instead of just using the random encounter rule table. So that's available in there as well. So again, use random encounters. Think about pacing in your game, adding more combat, adding more exploration, or less combat. It's up to you, but I like to use this system as a method for pacing. All right, so that's random encounters out of the way in here. The next thing we have in here I want to talk about is travel. And let's talk about the map here. So you'll see the hexes on the map. I have made the scale to 1 mile per hex, and I've simplified the D&D rules. Now, the village maps, by the way, are 1 hex represents 100 feet. But on this map, 1 hex represents a mile. Now, this is not rules as written, and you might be asking, why did I expand the distance in Curse of Strahd? Well, there was a couple of reasons. I wanted this to be, it's an epic campaign. I wanted it to be an epic journey, especially going up to Tsolenka Pass is going to take some time getting up to the Amber Temple. I also wanted to make sure there's going to be times where players are going to have to camp on the road. In rules as written, you don't have to camp anywhere. Everything is so close by, it's only a couple hours to get to anywhere. Here, that's why I expanded it. Now, here are a couple of the rule changes I've made to simplify and make it a little bit more, well, daring and difficult, but also simplify the rules. A player or party can travel only 8 hours per given day without the need of a long rest. So 8 hours of your day can be hiking and traveling, which obviously you're going to have to sprinkle in some resting in there, some long rest. There might be combat encounters, a short rest. Because think about this, you're carrying all this gear, it's heavy gear. I do a lot of hiking. I usually do anywhere from 10 to 12 kilometers worth of hiking. I can tell you, and I'm not carrying much at all compared to what these D&D player characters are carrying. And yeah, you're going to need a short rest, especially after, 10, every 10 kilometers that you're hiking. So 8 hours per day worth of traveling without the need of a long rest. Here's a couple things. If you exceed that 8 hours worth of traveling, you're going to suffer one level of exhaustion. So this is going to control pacing of the traveling of the players. You can travel at 3 different speeds. So you got slow speed, which is 2 hexes or 2 miles per hour, or 16 hexes for the day if you travel the entire day at slow speed. There's some advantages traveling slow. You're able to travel in stealth, and you're going to get +5 bonus to your passive perception. It's huge. This is going to reduce surprise attacks against you. You're going to be a lot more sensitive to your environment. You're going to be traveling in stealth, probably unnoticed. So it's a huge advantage traveling in stealth. Traveling at normal speed, that's 3 miles per hour, 3 hexes. You can travel up, you remember 8 hours, 8 times 3, that's 24 hexes without the need of a long rest. However, traveling at normal speed, you're going to need to rest at least once every 12 miles or every 4 hours. So you're going to require at least one short rest in there, or you're going to suffer one level of exhaustion. Now, if you're fast traveling, you're moving at 4 miles per hour, that's 32 hexes a day, you're hoofing it, you're going to need to take a short rest every 2 hours of traveling. So you're going to be or 8 miles. So every 8 miles or every 2 hours, you're going to have to take a short rest, or you're going to suffer one level of exhaustion. You're moving quickly. It's kind of a forced march. You're trying to get somewhere quickly. You're not going to be paying attention. So you're going to have a -5 to your passive perception. These are simplified rules to make traveling easy for you. Now, remember, difficult terrain and environmental conditions are going to change that travel pace. Difficult terrain doubles the time it takes to travel the same distance. So over an hour, it's gonna you're only gonna be traveling 1 hex instead of 2 hexes or whatever. So I also put in here some basic. These are approximations and some suggestions from major locations to other. How long does it take to go from the Amber Temple to the village of Vallaki? That's 46 hexes, approximately 24 hours of travel. There's some suggested travel days. If you want to think in terms of travel days, it's about 3 days worth of travel, and you're going to go, wait a second, the math doesn't add up. Well, part of those hexes are difficult terrain. Part of those hexes include extreme weather conditions. So yes, it's going to be, these are approximations, 46 hexes, 46 miles, travel time 24 hours. It could be longer or shorter, suggested 3 days. So I've got all the major locations in here with approximate travel distances and travel times in here for quick references. So that's in there as well. Now, I'm going to talk about the Tarokka Reading. I'll just cover the Tarokka Reading now. The Tarokka Reading in here, these are my suggestions. You can take them or leave them, but these are my suggestions that really kind of fit into a more narrative, lore-based Legends of Barovia campaign. Now, let me stop right there first. I really love the mechanic of random rolls and randomly placing items. The problem with random rolls and randomly placing items and doing a random reading means 2 things. You're going to have objects that are going to be in locations that really do not make sense, or too easy to get, or too difficult to get. I mean, you could possibly randomly draw and say, well, the Sunsword's located in the Vistani camp at Tser Pool right next to the card reading, and you just have to go outside and you've got one of the most powerful weapons in the game, because randomly it just happens to be, for some weird reason, in the Vistani camp where you're getting your card reading. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Or you could have the item hidden somewhere in Ravenloft, meaning that the item that you need to defeat Strahd is with Strahd somehow. So sometimes these things, just randomness, while a fun mechanic, can really make the game awkward, less or more challenging, or break the verisimilitude, the story, epic story. So these are my suggestions on the card reading that fit into the campaign. You don't have to use them, they're just my suggestions. The first one is the Tome of Strahd. Now, I am working on, with the author as well as DM Andy, on the interactive Tome of Strahd. I'm not talking about that here. That'll be obviously updated later in here with the help of both of them to make that available to you as well in Foundry. But here are my suggestions of placing the Tome of Strahd. I think there's 3 interesting locations that fit in with the narrative and the story. The first one is the Amber Temple. Now, this is a late game, level 9 area to place the Tome of Strahd. If you want to place it way in the late game, you can. I would place it where the Stars of Elementals is. This is the architect's room in the temple, Amber Temple. I've tied in some lore there where Artemis, his journal is there. There's the plans to Ravenloft. There's a quest line there as well. It would make sense. He's been working at Ravenloft. Strahd had killed his masters. He's kind of working under this kind of threat to finish up the Castle Ravenloft. So he's stolen Strahd's tomb and hit him with the plans to Ravenloft. There's a note with his journal saying, "I hope someone finds this and defeats the Dark Lord." So that kind of fits in with the storyline. The 2 other locations I think it really fits in is with Rictavio, who you know is Van Richten in disguise. So you could hide it in an early game session in Rictavio's wagon in the stockyard in Vallaki, which would make sense. You know, Rictavio / Van Richten is a monster hunter. He's trying to kill vampires. There's a whole background story with him. Obviously, if he could get the Tome of Strahd, he'd steal that. He'd be using it as references to learn all about Strahd. So Rictavio's wagon, that's the 7 of Stars. By the way, I've got all of the cards of Fortunes of Ravenloft in here. These are pictures being pulled in right in from D&D Beyond. It gives you the location, everything in here, making your life easy, including a link right back to D&D Beyond. Where is it? It's in the stockyard. Where's the Fortune of Ravenloft? There it is, right there. You can see at the top, Fortunes of Ravenloft. Where is it hidden? Under the front seat of the wagon. So all of that is in here to make your life really easy. So I would hide it there in the wagon, or I would hide it in the Wizard's Tower. You know, Van Richten has kind of commandeered the Wizard's Tower, using that as a home base. Maybe he stole this Tome of Strahd and it's hidden in that Wizard's Tower. So those are the 3 locations I would hide it. I'm leaning more towards Rictavio in the wagon or Van Richten in the Wizard's Tower is where I would hide the Tome of Strahd. The next up is the holy symbol of Ravenkind. And I put a really fun, amazing quest line together, tied into some lore, including an anagram puzzle to get this. It is hidden in the graveyard of the Abbey. I have an alternative down here. It says, Madame Ava says, "I see a graveyard covered in snow and a sister who has been waiting for centuries." In it, here's the card. It's hidden in the Abbey of St. Marcovi in the graveyard, and it's tied into this great story. And there's a book that players can find. It's called The Legends of Laganda. Lagdana was Argynvost's adopted daughter. She became a knight, probably the most exceptional knight in the Order of the Silver Dragon. And then she started fighting the undead. She was gifted the holy symbol of the sun to fight the undead, which is also the holy symbol of Ravenkind. When she was defeated, the person that gave it to her, which is Sister Constance, who is secretly an angel, took it back and hid it in a gravestone, Sister Constance's gravestone. There's an anagram that you have to solve to open up the gravestone, and the hint in the anagram is actually in the book. It's here at the end. Strahd must die. It's a little tip there for you. So players get this book, they read through it, they see this thing on the back of the gravestone. It's an anagram. It's a really cool quest line. It fits into the whole story. It's a great location. It's a reason to get to the Abbey, to the graveyard in the Abbey. I really like this whole thing with the puzzle and the book and the lore. The next one is another quest line, and it's for the Sunsword. Instead of the Sunsword, and this is pretty interesting, if we look at the Sunsword from rules that are written, it says here that the Sunsword is actually a sun blade, and the hilt makes it sentient, and there's a whole little story back here. I decided to really expand upon this in here, and the hilt and the sun blade have been taken apart. The hilt was stolen and hidden in the Wizard's Tower by the wizard Kazan, and the sun sword, the sun blade itself, is hidden in Argynvost hold. So when you read the card here, that is the 4 of Stars. I see a fallen house guarded by the great stone dragon. Look to the highest peak. This is where the Sun Blade is. So the Sun Blade is already a powerful weapon. Rules is written in D&D. But what happens is when the players get to the Shrine of the White Sun in Kresk, and they meet Sergei, the spirit of Sergei. That's Strahd's dead brother. Remember, Strahd killed his brother Sergei. The spirit tells them the Sunblade can be more powerful as the Sun Sword. The players must get the hilt from the Wizard's Tower. And if you bring back the hilt and the Sunblade, stick it into the water, Sergei forms them together, and Sergei is the sentient being in the Sun Sword. I mean, imagine that. You've got the Sun Sword. The sentient being in the Sun Sword is Strahd's brother Sergei, who's seeking vengeance vicariously through the blade in your party to defeat his brother. So it's a great, cool quest line. It brings the whole Shrine of the White Sun in there. It puts brings Argynvost into play with the Sunblade, the hilt. I really love this entire little mini quest line. So the players can get the Sunblade. They don't have to get the hilt and use the Sunsword, but they do. They're bringing Sergei into play in that final battle, in the epic confrontation. You could probably have this when in that fight. I can imagine that the sword actually starts to speak out in Sergei's voice, and Strahd hears it, and he realizes that his end is he's facing some serious opposition, and now his brother spirit is there in the battle with it. I mean, that could just be an epic scene, can't it? I just think that's so cool. Now, Strahd's enemy. Whoa, this is cool. So I've picked out 5 suggested enemies. 3 of them are rules as written in here. The rules as written ones, let's cover those first. I think the 2 really good your allies or Strahd's enemy would either be Esmeralda or Rictavio. And the reason for that is they're both monster hunters. They're searching out, killing vampires. It totally makes sense that the parties align, hook up with them. Rictavio's in disguise of Vallaki, trying to learn as much as he can. They learn up through Rictavio, or maybe they find him at the Wizard's Tower, or Esmeralda. I think those are 2 brilliant monster hunters if you want to use rules as written. The third rules as written that I would use would be Sir Godfrey, the Revenant from Argynvost's Hold. If you want to lean into that Argynvost mythos, I would definitely use him. Now, I do have a supplement. It's available for free, and it's an alternative to Resurrection. It's when your players die, they come back as Revenants. And if you're going to run that supplement where your players may die and they turn into a Revenant, this really ties well into Argynvost's Hold. It really makes sense to have Godfrey as your ally because he's a fellow Revenant. Maybe he becomes your ally after you become a Revenant, and then you can communicate through the spirit world to Sir Godfrey, and he can show up to help you and aid the party in that battle against Strahd. Now, the 2 optional ones I've added, I'm going to talk about the first one here, which I really like. If you're running the Fae quest, right, there's this ally in here that I've made in here, and that is Muriel Venshaw. What Madame Ava says, she says, "She is everywhere and always watching. Close with the Fae, she'll reach out if she trusts you." Now, this is Muriel Venshaw. And who is Muriel Venshaw? She's just briefly mentioned in the official canon Curse of Strahd, but I elaborated on her. She is a were-raven, and if you're running the Fae epic quest line, there is the Forest Fae in disguise hiding in Vallaki as Lila, the herbalist midwife that lives in Vallaki. And the only one that knows that she is the Forest Fae in disguise trying to look for adventurers to overthrow Strahd and restore the Fae shrines is Muriel Venshaw. Muriel Venshaw's history is interesting. She is from the Venshaw were-raven line who helped the Fae hundreds of years ago hide the green Forest Fae gem in the Wizards of Wine. So her family line has always known and has a secret bond with the Forest Fae. She is like the confidant of the Forest Fae. So she is an excellent ally if you're going to be running the Forest Fae questline. She is a were-raven, so she can travel and keep an eye out on what's going on at the different Forest Fae and Mountain Fae and Water Fae shrines. The players already probably run into her really early in the campaign as the were-ravens are spotting the players at the Windmill, the old bone grinder. Now, if I was going to boost up her stat block, The way I see Muriel Venshaw is she's like Strider. Remember Aragorn, son of Arathorn in Lord of the Rings, but at the beginning he's Strider. He's kind of a ranger, rogue, fighter. That's how I see Muriel Venshaw. She is going to be a total badass with a crossbow and a bow. She has some ranger qualities to her. She also has some fighting qualities, maybe a little couple kind of a monk style in there, and some rogue stuff, some sneak attacks. So she's going to be kind of a rogue ranger fighter character in there. Really cool. Were-Raven, can fly ahead, spot things for players. I think she'd be an awesome, super cool ally, especially running the Fae quest. She reveals herself when she knows you guys are trying to help the Fae. It brings in the introduction to Lila as the Force Fae in Vallaki. I think you could run with this really, really well. Now, my last recommendation is an epic, crazy recommendation. It's a new one, and that is Lamilla the Vampire. What? You're going to go, what? Lamilla the Vampire is my ally. Madame Ava says to you, she turns over the Dark Lord card and she says, a new Dark Lord, a Dark Queen seeks to reign. Seek her lone tower, but beware, she can be a dangerous ally. If you follow my guide, The Gates of Tsolenka, Lamilla has commandeered the tower there, and Diamandi built and expanded upon the map. Really, really cool. There's a separate tower there expanded upon. Lamilla has been using that as her lair. She is a vampire spellcaster who secretly wants to overthrow Strahd, take over Barovia, defeat Strahd and take over Barovia. She thinks Strahd's lost it. He's kind of, spending all his time chasing down Tatiana. He's not ruling over Barovia the way she thinks he should be. This creates an epic kind of upside down campaign at this point because the players are allying with Lamilla, the vampire bride, meeting up with her in the tower at Tsolenka, and it's kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I mean, allying with her, she can certainly help to overthrow Strahd because she wants to become the queen of Barovia. How are you going to roleplay that? Is Lamilla going to be friendly with the party after they defeat Strahd? Do the players have to defeat her after they defeat Strahd? Does she lift the mist? Does she let the players go? This gives you a huge opportunity to really role play into this, lean into it, have some epic combat with Strahd and Lamilla. She probably can commandeer a couple of undead herself. She's a spellcaster. By the way, she does have a couple of dark gifts because she's wandered into the Ember Temple. She's kind of trying to get into the other vaults there. I mean, there's so much you can do with this. I think that would be just so crazy, making her your fated ally as Lamilla, the vampire spellcaster wishing to become the Dark Queen of Barovia. I think that'd just be super epic. I would love to hear from you on that. So those are the Strahd allies that I recommend. My last one is Strahd's location. My personal opinion is I would use the Mist card. Strahd can be anywhere in Castle Ravenloft. Do not pin him down to one location. I prefer the Mist card. However, if you do want to run one location, the location I would recommend is the Treasury Room. And why is that? It is, and it has happened, not to me, but it has happened in other campaigns where the players can't find the Treasure Room. The Treasure Room is hidden behind a secret door in the study with the fireplace. There's a picture of Tatiana on there. So if you want to help the players kind of find the Treasure Room, you could give them this card here. So I see a secret place, a vault behind the temptation, hidden behind a woman of great beauty. The evil awaits atop this tower's treasure. So it's hinting the Treasure Room. It's giving you the hint of the picture of Irina or Tatiana, that there's a secret door behind it, and then you could begin the battle there. I think your epic battle with Strahd needs to take place in multiple locations throughout Castle Ravenloft. It's kind of a hit and run type of situation going on there. So if you did use a location card, my recommendation would be the card that takes them to the Treasure Room K41. So those are my recommendations for the card reading, rules as written. These are the ones that I would recommend. Again, it's up to you. All of this here is in the Barovian Atlas Guide. The last but not least we have in here is, I do a lot of talking about the Vistani. I really think the Vistani are amazing. What I did in my campaign, I divided the Vistani into two camps. The Tser Pool camp are the ambivalent Vistani. They're not enemies of Strahd's, but they're not really allies of Strahd. Madame Ava lives there. And what I did was I included a perception of 12, you'll notice that everybody in that camp, the men wear, blue bandanas or blue scarves. The women have a blue sash or something on. There's this common theme that you're going to see, this kind of blue bandana or blue sash or material that they all wear. Vice versa, in the Vistani camp near Vallaki, they all wear red bandanas or red sashes, and that represents their clan. That clan is allies with Strahd. They are working with Strahd. They are, these are the bad Vistani versus the good Vistani. That's the way I divide them. Now, I did include some basic edited down culture that was created by MandyMod. There is a link for this is all stuff from MandyMod. Really great stuff. There's a link in here right back to Reddit's MandyMod's post on the extended Vistani stuff here. So if you want to read all of it, you can just click on it right within Foundry or in the PDF. It takes you right here. Really cool stuff in here. I also added some additional content to the Vistani. There's the Shigari, which is a challenge, a knife fight challenge of who draws first blood. It's kind of be a challenge thing. It's not to the death. It's just you got to nick the person and get some blood, off of them. This is kind of one of those things where you're challenging another person when you have a disagreement. There's also the Dori Dusta dance. This allows the player to do a performance and a dance. There's some rewards and some treasures if they do well in the dance, and it can ingratiate them into that Vistani clan. There's also the Vistani curses, which I've included in here, some annoyance, cruel curses, how they work. So there's a whole section in here on running the Vistani. The other section I have in here is I have the Fortunes of Ravenloft. I have all the locations divided by items, enemies, and Strahd's location in here. These are all the cards being pulled in. The images are being pulled in from D&D Beyond. Of course, you need to own Curse of Strahd D&D Beyond to get these images in here. But I included the links back into D&D Beyond and the locations to where to find them. So it makes your life easy navigating this map where these places are located, trying to make your life easier in here. The other thing I have in here is I have all the quests in here, including the additional quests that I have added. For instance, if you're going to be finding, let's just click on one here, Izik's Obsession. This tells you who the quest giver is, where that location is. It tells you about the quest, some other interesting locations, if they're a reward or anything. So all the quests are in here as well. So let's take a look at some of these locations in here. You can see that I've added some additional locations, and I'm going to point those out. One of the first new additional locations is my entire revamp of the Death House. That's right here. This is Count Lugosi's Manor. This is the revamp of the Death House levels 1 through 3. What I really wanted to do was create a beginning adventure that helps bring the players into Barovia. It introduces them to some basic lore. There's a couple of basic quest lines. There's some tie-ins to Strahd, some tie-ins to the village of Barovia that really help that player get familiar with Barovia. I think it's a great level 1, 2, 3 adventure. Again, you can pick up the guides, the video guides, the PDF modules, everything. By the way, the Count Lugosi's Manor and Crypt are completely free, available to the entire community, both the Foundry module and the PDF guide in here. There's a couple of quests out of here, and you'll notice in each one of these Atlas locations, not only is there a picture and some DM notes in here, there's also books. I have included all the lore books, and I've broken them down into one-of-a-kind, uncommon books, letters and notes, and rare books. So there's some stuff that the players can find in these locations. This is an item the player can have. They can read it. Here's the Lords of Barovia. This gives you the timeline and the history of all the Lords of Barovia. It's a book that most of the Burgermeisters will have. Count Lugosi will have it. And so this is just lore book. By the way, books are broken down into two things. Lore books, which the players don't have to read. It just gives you more context to what's going on. But there's also books that have clues that are needed for quests. And that's the second book. The Devil We Know is a cult book, which Count Lugosi was a member of the cult that ties into Lady Valker and the Valker cult in Vallaki. So this is kind of a clue in there. We got some quest lines in here. Rescue Willa. Willa is found in the dungeon in Count Lugosi's crypt. She needs to be brought back to her mother, Mad Mary. That begins the second quest line, which is finding Gertruda, her older sister. So all of those quests are tied in here. That's a fun location. The next up, we have the village of Barovia. And let me show you how these villages work. So we're going to look at this gorgeous isometric map. When you click on the village, you've got the village and all the internal locations of the village. the special events, which link back to D&D Beyond, some basic time travel information as well to different locations, and of course links back to my guides as well as D&D Beyond. But if we right-click on the village and we go into the village, we actually have the village in here with your token. Now, these hexes represent 100 feet, and we've got, again, the markers for each of these locations in here. So as the players visit them, you can give them observer status. So we've got the Burgermeister Manor. It tells you what NPCs are there, a special encounter, some books that they may find there. There's this quest line, Escort Irina. Also, the video guides, PDF guides are all available there. We've got the Blood and Vine Tavern. Again, who's there, their stat blocks, clicks to their stat blocks again. So this just makes it easy for you to plan that next session. Oh, I need that PDF guide for this location. Oh, I can get that. Oh, I need to reference D&D Beyond. Oh, I can just click on it. It takes me there. Oh, I need to watch that video guide to get up to date. Maybe you like to watch video or listen to podcasts instead of reading. Both of those are available in here. So we've got all the locations. Bildreth's Mercantile Exchange. Each one has a nice Theater of the Mind map in here as well. Mad Mary's, and of course, the Barovia Church with all the things that happen there. If we go back out to the map of Barovia, we'll take a look. We've got the Crossroads, the first bridge. I want to talk about the bridge here. I would recommend running the Pie Lady at this location instead of in town. The reason is the players are in town, they're exploring town. In my personal opinion, this is a great planned encounter. Instead of a random encounter at the bridge, you can have her pushing the cart. Maybe the cart is stuck in the mud or stuck in a rut, and she's like, oh, I need help with my cart. I'm taking my pies into town to sell to the people. I've got to make the pies over at my old windmill. Oh, could you help me with my cart over this bridge? And as they help the old lady with the cart of the bridge, she goes, oh, I don't have much money, but I would graciously give you a couple of my pies for your help. Oh, thank you. And so she gives the players the pie. This removes that whole pie situation in the village, takes it outside the village, and it creates a more humble encounter. Instead of, they arrive in that spooky village, they're going to be on their back heels, suspicious of everything. Here they see this kind of lady, struggling. She needs help. They help her out, and she gives them a couple of pies. They think nothing of it, and then all of a sudden, it turns into a shit show, right? We have the Crossroads. I've added some special encounters here in my guides. Again, you can go and check those out. I really love the Hang the Witch situation in the Ghost Night. If you haven't seen those, check out the video guide there. Those are really two fun encounters. Then we get up to the Tser Pool encampment, and Tser Pool is where you're going to do your Madame Ava card reading. I wanted to talk about one other card reading. This is where you're going to get that Fey Epic Quest card reading. And I have a video guide into that Fey Epic Quest card reading right here. And I cover that right here. So there's a whole section on doing the Fey Quest, the green gem, the red gem, and the blue gem. So it's an additional card reading. If you jump into the Fey Quest card reading here, she lays out 3 cards that tell you where each of the gems is. There's a whole guide to that with the Fey Quest, so you know how to run that from the Fey Quest perspective. So definitely check that out. There's the Wine Quest, the Toast of Leo quest, which I just love this quest. This is where Leo is Strahd's bastard brother, who is part Vistani, and so he's been murdered, but the players, nobody knows that. This takes you into Lady Valker's manor. You find the diary, which is the historical diary of Lady Valker's great-great-great-grandmother, who actually murders, in order to become part of the royal court, she murders her lover, and that's who's buried, the bones that are in the chest there. So this is a really cool quest line. Really like this quest line here. And we move up to the Tesser Falls. I've got some unique encounters there, including Jesper Noggins. I really love Jesper Noggins. Jesper Noggins, there's a running joke I have with some players and some Patreon members. He has an AC of 30 and 1 hit point. He's like the town drunk that just wanders from village to village looking for some of that fabled Barovian wine. He has got a great random lore table and rumor table. Some of it's true, some of it's false. But no monster, not even Strahd, wants to touch this guy. He is so drunk. I mean, Strahd's like, man, I'm not going to drink any of that blood. I don't want to get like vampire drunk off of Jesper Noggins. So he walks around totally carefree. Nothing touches this guy. He has such a high AC, nothing can even hit him. He only has 1 hit point because he's kind of stumbling around. Really fun character. You can kind of introduce him throughout the campaign. We have the western gates of Barovia. Of course, the Windmill here with the Forest Fae Shrine that's behind it, part of the Great Forest Fae quest. Got a new location up here. That's the Lone Tower. Really cool location. There's a monster there, Kronovich, which is the undead guard that used to be part of the Royal Blood Guard for Strahd, who's the actual person that murdered Sergei on Strahd's orders, killed Strahd's brother on Strahd's order. Great loot, great location. I'm really excited about that location. We get up to Vallaki, and I got to show you this. This is awesome. Look at all these amazing locations. I've got a whole bunch of new locations here. We have the Habendash. We have the Cart and Wheel, which is the Wainwright in town. The Blacksmith, the Third Eye Potion. Each one of these places have quests and cool loot and items. We got the Scran's Leather and Goods. A lot of great stuff. There's Lila's Home, which is the secretly the Forest Fae. We've got another tavern in town. We even have Vasily von Holtz's Manor here. It's a really cool battle map. In that manor, there's a secret room with a teleportation circle that takes you back to Ravenloft, that's how Strahd comes in and out of Vallaki. Really cool location. Excited about that. One of the things I really like in Vallaki is at the stockyard, we have a murder quest in here, which takes you, it's a murder quest. The wife of the person in the stockyard has been murdered in the stockyard, and the players have to now travel throughout Barovia, meet all of these characters in Barovia to solve this murder quest. So there's a whole murder mystery game within Vallaki. I think you'd really like it. It starts in the stockyard. Awesome stuff. So all these cool locations. We got Ernst's home. We also have a haunted house in town. A lot of cool locations. Again, this is a gorgeous map. This is going to make your life so much easier because when the players are in Vallaki, they'll be here a long time. You can just move this around and show them where they are. What you can do, by the way, in the villages is you can go to the folder of the village, so the village of Vallaki. You can right-click and configure permissions to limited. What this does is it will show you the pin and the name, but they're not going to be able to open up that until they have observer status. So what I would do in each of the villages is make them all limited status so the players can see all these pins and the names on them. And so as they're traveling through each one, then you give them observer status of each one. This will make their time in the village of Vallaki, which they'll probably spend a lot of time at, a lot easier. Gives them a kind of frame of reference of where they are in the town, and then you move this token where they are. Oh, they're at the Blue Water Inn. Here's the Blue Water Inn, and all the stuff in the Blue Water Inn, the quest lines, the items, Fortunes of Ravenloft, all of it is there. Let's go back to the map of Barovia. A couple other places I want to show you. I created a new location. It's the Gitrog Cave. Great adventure in here. A great cavern. Cool creature to kill, some cool treasure and loot. It's tied in, it could be tied into the Fae quest for the Blue Gem. We also have a new location, which is the Worg Den. There's a war going on between the Worg and the werewolves. There's a battle, werewolf-Worg battle, and a battle map for this. DM Andy made great maps for this location. Some great quest lines that tie into the werewolves, the wargs, all of that's going on. We have a couple of new planned encounters. We have one at the Luna River Crossroads. We've got the old Sir Lingovich, which is a revenant. He doesn't know he's a revenant. He's on watch. He's been on watch for over 350 years. He goes there and he lights the lanterns at the bridge. Everybody in town of Vallaki thinks there's some ghost or monster out here, so nobody wanders out here. But it's this old revenant doing the same job over and over again. Really fun, interesting encounter. We also have the Neckers hiding under the bridge that will attack the players. We've got over at the Raven River, we've got the Raven River Bridge and Windmill, where we have a druid living there, Ovidia, and she has sheep. Her sheep are being attacked by wolves. You find out they're a werewolf. This kind of leads into some more of the werewolf encounters there. Really fun new location. We also have a new location called the Druid Forest. As you're approaching Yester Hill, there's a Seer Cave that reads the players of prophecy. We've got some fun voice acting. Really cool, neat location. It tells what the players need to deal with at Yester Hill. It predicts finding the red gem and going into the mountains to the Tsolenka Pass. And then one thing I really expanded a lot on is the ascent to Tsolenka and all the locations all the way up to the gates of Tsolenka. So we've got the frozen lake here, rescuing Bogda. We come up to the snow forest here, and you run into the spirits of the Shield Maidens. Then you get to one of my favorite locations, which is the ruins of Bargao. We've got a really cool Elder Balin there. He's such an amazing character. There's some epic quests that lead you up to the Amber Temple from here. A lot of interesting lore and history that's tied into here. Cool clues. There's the Fey spirits at the temple, the old Fey temple ruins there to encounter. These undead cave bear. Just a really cool location. Of course, Tsolenka Gates, and there's the tower. Lamilla's commandeered this tower over here on the right. And man, if she's your fated ally, whew, your campaign's going to go crazy. You know, having a vampire spellcaster as your favorite ally, it's going to create some interesting things. Of course, you got the bridge, the Tsolenka Bridge, and then we've got the rock nest up in the mountains. There's a whole rock nest with the baby rock. Beautiful battle map by DM Andy up there. Really enjoy that. We head down, and you've got the high pass, where you have also an avalanche minigame. There's a cool avalanche minigame I've created for this in case an avalanche happens. This is where they encounter the Bloodhorn. And we have the Amber Temple, of course. A couple other locations in here. I am currently working on Berez. I'll open this up so you can view it. We've got DM Andy's gorgeous hex-based map of Berez. I've got a couple locations already finished in here. I'm working on that this month, and then Argynvost as well. We've got the Burgermeister Manor here with some new monsters and creatures in the garden, including the fabled legendary Shield of Argynvost, which could be found really cool with the Bury My Son quest. Really like this. This is going to be fleshed out here next month, so you're going to have some more locations, more lore here. And that's pretty much it. I really think this is going to make your life really easy managing Curse of Strahd. So if you install this first, right, and then as you need modules or PDFs or information from D&D Beyond, all those links are in there. You can go, I need to download this PDF. Great. So you just don't have to download everything at once. You can manage and keep yourself sane running Curse of Strahd using the Atlas of Barovia. It includes all the stuff that you've seen here, the quests, the books, the roll tables, everything that you need. It also gives your players something to interact with and gives them a frame of reference on these gorgeous maps that DM Andy has created. So I really hope you like this guide. If you do, please smash that like button, hit subscribe, join us on Discord, share your ideas and thoughts. I'd like to hear your comments down below. Really appreciate it. Check this out. And if you're interested in supporting me and becoming a Patreon member, you can. Click that link down below, become a Patreon member, get access to all those additional Foundry Adventure modules and everything. I really appreciate the community and all the support and help. DM Andy, James, RPG Art, Blair, all the amazing Patreon members. Huge, huge thank you. I hope that this gift will make your life managing Curse of Strahd a lot easier and a lot better. It would me. I wish I had this when I was running my 18-month campaign. Well, until next time, this is Parm King signing off, and may all your rolls be critically successful.